Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
We are seeing a growing debate about so-called warrior cops, a term that I've heard, and the militarization of police. I think it's very important to remind our fellow citizens that we need a range of weapons and equipment to respond and protect our fellow citizens and protect ourselves. Threat!
We are at war, and you're the frontline troops in this war.
We are preparing for any type of situation. Of course, anything dealing with ISIS is a concern. We do a lot of training in the event that we had a situation like what they had in Missouri.
You have the right to assemble. You are violating the state laws of curfew. We have the right. That is our right.
There's actually written descriptions for how the equipment should be used, and it says it's specifically not supposed to be used for riot suppression.
I know you for a long time, bro. A long time.
Y'all still killing us.
25 years I've been here. 25 years here, I never killed a man. Get your thing.
Folks, there ain't nobody in Mexico right now complaining about militarization of police. You understand? In the very near future, you will be vindicated.
It's clear.
There's gotta be some drugs here.
We need to put the brakes on the fear, and we need to act rationally. Terrorism works because it makes people irrational, and it makes them destroy themselves.
Trump's video game violence panel features police trainer who says lethal force leads to the best sex. President Donald Trump is hosting a discussion on violence in video games on Thursday, and it features a controversial police trainer who encourages cops to be more willing to use lethal force. The Washington Post's Radley Balko, who has written extensively on Grossman's courses in the past, writes on Twitter that Grossman not only tells cops they should employ more lethal force, he also tells them that after killing a man, they'll have the best sex of their lives. Grossman is a police trainer who tells cops they should be using more lethal force, and that after killing a man, they'll have the best sex of their lives. Radley Balko. Heavy checkmark. At Radley Balko. Grossman is a police trainer who tells cops they should be using more lethal force, and that after killing a man, they'll have the best sex of their lives. The White House will hear his I am sure it isn't crazy at all expertise about video games. 12:29 p.m., March 8, 2018. 616. 619 people are talking about this. Twitter adds info and privacy. In a Washington Post article on Grossman published last year, Balko noted that Grossman believes that officers ought to think of themselves more as warriors than as public servants, and he wants them to be always on edge about evildoers who are out to kill them. We fight violence, Grossman tells students, according to a report on a class published by Mother Jones. What do we fight it with? Superior violence. Righteous violence. The reason that Grossman is attending a panel on violence in video games is that he believes these games are literally training young people to become mass killers. From a military and law enforcement perspective, violent video games are murder simulators that train kids to kill, Grossman wrote in a 2013 article published by Variety. They act just like police and military simulators, providing conditioned responses, killing skills, and desensitization, except they are inflicted on children without the discipline of military and police training. And as Balko notes, Grossman believes so strongly in linking video games with mass shootings that he thinks people who deny the link are on par with Holocaust deniers. View image on Twitter. View image on Twitter. View image on Twitter. Radley Balko. Heavy check mark. At Radley Balko. As I was saying. Not crazy at all. Are you prepared to kill somebody? A day with one of America's most popular police trainers. The dark vision of killology expert Dave Grossman. Brian Chitzmar/APR 2017 issue. Marching around the stage in a theater in Lakeport, California, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman tells his audience that they shouldn't go out looking for people to kill, because those who need killing, the gangbangers, terrorists, and mass murderers, will come to them. All they need to do is be ready. Are you prepared to kill somebody? He asks me and the small group of armed citizens who paid $90 or more to see him. If you cannot answer that question, you should not be carrying a gun. 2 hours into his high-octane, 6-hour seminar, the self-described top police trainer in the nation is just getting warmed up. Grossman, a 60-year-old former Army Ranger, wears low-slung blue jeans, an ornate Western belt buckle, and a black button-up emblazoned with the words Grossman Academy, the O stitched like a bullseye. He sports a military haircut. On stage are 2 giant easel pads, their legs taped to the floor so that they don't go crashing down whenever he hits them to punctuate his points. We fight violence. What do we fight it with? Superior violence. Righteous violence. Like a preacher, he doesn't bother with notes. In the era of Black Lives Matter, Grossman insists that cops must be more, not less, prepared to use force. Over the past 2 decades, Grossman has achieved semi-celebrity status as an authority on aggression, close combat, and the psychology of violence. He literally wrote the book on killing. His books have been translated into several languages, and he says they are required reading at the FBI Academy and many law enforcement academies. He's lectured at West Point and claims to have conducted trainings for every federal law enforcement agency, every branch of the armed forces, and cops in all 50 states. For more than 19 years, he's been on the road, leading seminars and trainings nearly 300 days a year. He has a black belt in Hojutsu, the Japanese art of shooting. Grossman did not grant my request to attend one of his police trainings, nor did he agree to be interviewed. Grossman's philosophy grew out of the 2 decades he says he spent training soldiers to kill more efficiently. The military has long taught its troops to kill through a process of conditioned response: aim, shoot, that's meant to override the part of the brain that asks, should I be doing this? By refining this approach, Grossman and others claim, the U.S. military boosted its kill ratio, the percentage of frontline soldiers who actually shoot to kill, from between 15 and 25% during World War II to as much as 100% during the Vietnam War. These figures and the scholarship behind them have been fiercely debated. Grossman takes this a step further. Rather than simply conditioning soldiers and police officers to shoot without hesitation, he teaches them to embrace their responsibility to kill. Killing's not the goal, he cautioned in a 2004 interview with Frontline. But we all understand that killing is the likely outcome. Grossman calls his discipline killology, the scholarly study of the destructive act. Though he spent years as a soldier, he has never killed anyone in combat. And while he is a luminary to many in law enforcement, the warrior mentality he espouses is under fire. As Black Lives Matter has exposed the prevalence of police abuses and the confrontational attitude that often sparks them, Grossman continues to insist that cops are the ones under siege and that they must be more, not less, prepared to use force. The number of dead cops has exploded like nothing we have ever seen, he tells the armed citizens in Lakeport. That is not true. The average annual number of police officers intentionally killed while on duty in the past decade is 40% lower than it was in the 1980s. If emergency medicine and body armor hadn't improved since the 1970s, Grossman claims, the number of dead cops would be 8 times what it is today. It's not clear how he arrived at these figures. Grossman says, the number of dead cops has exploded like nothing we have ever seen. That is not true. Last summer, after a black man named Philando Castile was shot and killed during a traffic stop outside Minneapolis, it was revealed that 2 years earlier the officer, Geronimo Yanez, had attended the Bulletproof Warrior, a 2-day training taught by Grossman and his colleague Jim Glennon. Shortly after this came out, the sheriff of Santa Clara County, California, which includes San Jose, canceled an upcoming Grossman training, saying her officers were meant to be peacemakers first and warriors second. Grossman's trainings are fear porn, says Craig Atkinson, a filmmaker who attended one for his documentary on police militarization, Do Not Resist. He wonders how the Castile incident might have played out if Officer Yanez hadn't heard Dave Grossman tell him that every single traffic stop might be, the last stop you ever make in your life. Grossman is more of a motivational speaker than a trainer, says Seth Stoughton, a former cop and law professor at the University of South Carolina who studies the regulation of police. In Grossman's worldview, Stoughton says, the officer is the hero, the warrior, the noble figure who steps into dark situations where others fear to tread and brings order to a chaotic world, and who does so by imposing their will on the civilians they deal with. This approach to policing is outdated and ineffective, says Stoughton, and, some of it is dangerously wrong. Samuel Walker, a criminal justice professor and expert on police accountability, says the Bulletproof Warrior approach is okay for Green Berets but unacceptable for domestic policing. The best police chiefs in the country don't want anything to do with this. Glennon has said that the reporting on his and Grossman's police seminars is inaccurate. The word warrior has been hijacked by people in order to prove their false thesis, that law enforcement officers are training like military warriors, which is to shoot first, ask questions later, that everybody's out to kill you, so you better kill them first. And there is absolutely zero truth to that in our course, none, he told a Minnesota newspaper after the Castile shooting. The booklet Grossman hands out at his civilian training contains some of the same content that cops receive. There are charts and tables on perceptual distortions in combat and combat efficiency. A section titled Thou Shalt Not Kill lists Bible verses that distinguish between justified killing and murder. Grossman does tell us that oftentimes in police training, the right answer is not to shoot. But he quickly pivots back to his message that right behind the police, gun owners are the front-line troops in his war. The fact that there hasn't been a homicide in rural Lakeport since 2002 doesn't slow him down. Hacking and stabbing little kids. When you hear about a daycare massacre, tell them Grossman said it was coming. On stage, Grossman comes off as both unglued and also quite sincere. He emphasizes the need for firearms training, and his voice cracks when he talks about the slaughtered children in school shootings. This is not right. These are just kids, he says. Never lose your sense of outrage over this. But he also views the world as almost unrecognizably dangerous, a place where gang members seek to set records for killing cops, where a kid in every school is thinking about racking up a body count. His latest book, Assassination Generation, insists that violent video games are turning the nation's youth into mass murderers. The recent wave of massacres is just the beginning. Please stop calling them mass shootings. He smacks the easels, these thump crimes are thump everywhere. He foresees attacks on school buses and daycare centers. Kindergartners run about 0.5 miles an hour and get a burst of about 20 yards and then they're done. It won't just happen with guns, but with hammers, axes, hatchets, knives, and swords. His voice jumps an octave, hacking and stabbing little kids. You don't think they'll attack daycares? It's already happening in China. When you hear about a daycare massacre, he shouts, "Tell them Grossman said it was coming." That's not the end of it. More people are signing up with ISIS than we can count, Grossman says. He predicts a terrorist organization will soon detonate a nuclear bomb off the West Coast. We have never been more likely to be nuked, and we have never been less prepared. Terrorists will send suicide biobombers across the border to spread deadly diseases. The day will come, Grossman insists. Folks, it is very, very bad out there. Grossman is already prepared for the worst even in the quietest of moments. He tells us a story. One night he was walking with his 3-year-old granddaughter and his German shepherd around a lake near where they live. He was armed, of course, with a gun and a knife. The sky darkened, and his granddaughter looked up. "There are scary things in the dark," she said. Grossman chuckled. "Yeah," he said. "It's us." The Watch Opinion. A Day with Philology Police Trainer Dave Grossman. By Radley Balco, February 14, 2017. Email the author. A few months ago, I posted a review of the harrowing documentary Do Not Resist. It includes a scene from a class with Dave Grossman, whose classes on policing and the use of force have become hugely popular in the law enforcement community. Fittingly, the most chilling scene in the movie doesn't take place on a city street, or at a protest, or during a drug raid. It takes place in a conference room. It's from a police training conference with Dave Grossman, one of the most prolific police trainers in the country. Grossman's classes teach officers to be less hesitant to use lethal force, urge them to be willing to do it more quickly, and teach them how to adopt the mentality of a warrior. Geronimo Yanez, the Minnesota police officer who shot and killed Philando Castile in July, had attended one of Grossman's classes called the Bulletproof Warrior, though that particular class was taught by Grossman's business partner, Jim Glennon. In the class recorded for Do Not Resist, Grossman at one point tells his students that the sex they have after they kill another human being will be the best sex of their lives. The room chuckles. But he's clearly serious. Both partners are very invested in some very intense sex, he says. There's not a whole lot of perks that come with this job. You find one, relax and enjoy it. Grossman closes the class with a, literal, chest-pounding motivational speech that climaxes with Grossman telling the officers to find an overpass overlooking the city they serve. He urges them to look down on their city and know that they've made the world a better place. He then urges them to grip the overpass railing, lean forward and let your cape blow in the wind. The room gives him a standing ovation. Grossman and Glennon teach the most popular of these classes, but they have competitors. When it comes to teaching cops how to escalate, how to see the world as their enemy, and how to find the courage to kill more people, more often, there's no shortage of options. The syllabus for one of these courses includes a page of Bible verses relating to when it's moral and just to kill. It's part and parcel with the pseudoscience churned out by William Lewinsky at the Force Science Institute in Minnesota, who also preaches that cops should learn to become more lethal, and will testify in court for any cop who takes his advice. I've spoken to more than a few sheriffs and police chiefs who want no part of this philosophy, but who also say they can't really control what their officers do on their own time. Mother Jones reporter Brian Schatz recently took one of Grossman's classes himself. Marching around the stage in a theater in Lakeport, California, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman tells his audience that they shouldn't go out looking for people to kill, because those who need killing, the gangbangers, terrorists, and mass murderers, will come to them. All they need to do is be ready. Are you prepared to kill somebody? He asks me and the small group of armed citizens who've paid $90 or more to see him. If you cannot answer that question, you should not be carrying a gun. 2 hours into his high-octane, 6-hour seminar, the self-described top police trainer in the nation is just getting warmed up. Grossman, a 60-year-old former Army Ranger, wears low-slung blue jeans, an ornate Western belt buckle, and a black button-up emblazoned with the words Grossman Academy, the O stitched like a bullseye. He sports a military haircut. On stage are two giant easel pads, their legs taped to the floor so that they don't go crashing down whenever he hits them to punctuate his points. We fight violence. What do we fight it with? Superior violence. Righteous violence. Like a preacher, he doesn't bother with notes. Grossman's worldview makes President Trump sound like Julian Simon. Grossman views the world as almost unrecognizably dangerous, a place where gang members seek to set records for killing cops, where a kid in every school is thinking about racking up a body count. His latest book, Assassination Generation, insists that violent video games are turning the nation's youth into mass murderers. The recent wave of massacres is just the beginning. Please stop calling them mass shootings. He smacks the easels, these thump crimes are thump everywhere. He foresees attacks on school buses and daycare centers. Kindergartners run about 0.5 miles an hour and get a burst of about 20 yards and then they're done. It won't just happen with guns, but with hammers, axes, hatchets, knives, and swords. His voice jumps an octave, hacking and stabbing little kids. You don't think they'll attack daycares? It's already happening in China. When you hear about a daycare massacre, he shouts, "Tell them Grossman said it was coming." That's not the end of it. More people are signing up with ISIS than we can count, Grossman says. He predicts a terrorist organization will soon detonate a nuclear bomb off the West Coast. We have never been more likely to be nuked, and we have never been less prepared. Terrorists will send suicide biobombers across the border to spread deadly diseases. The day will come, Grossman insists. Folks, it is very, very bad out there. This is the guy who has trained more U.S. police officers than anyone else. The guy who, more than anyone else, has instructed cops on what mindset they should bring to their jobs. Schatz isn't the first reporter to attend one of these classes. Bloomberg's Peter Robeson attended one in 2015, taught by Grossman's colleague Glennon. Here's a particularly vivid passage from Robeson's account. Before proceeding, Glennon points to a threat in the back of the room, me. In 35 years, we have not allowed the press to come into a class, he says. The reason is because we don't trust them. He says he's letting me observe because many police chiefs are frustrated no one is advocating for them. They're tired of being portrayed in the media as racists and unaccountable killers and want a more sympathetic depiction. If my article screws them, he tells the class with a smile, I'll fly out to Seattle where I live and kill him. I mean, I'm sure Glennon was joking. Hilarious. But in an era in which we have a president who A. is beloved by law enforcement, B. vilifies journalists and C. has expressed his admiration for at least one foreign leader believed to have no qualms about assassinating journalists, that passage is especially disconcerting. We're also entering an era in which law enforcement officials appear to be emboldened by Trump's election. Both the President and Attorney General Jeff Sessions have indicated that federal oversight of local law enforcement is about to end or at least be scaled back considerably. State legislators have followed with bills to hold cops less accountable and allow police agencies to be less transparent after allegations of excessive force. These classes are getting increasingly popular at a time when the dominant political party seems to believe police officers should be given more latitude, get less oversight and not be subject to second guessing. That seems like a potentially dangerous combination.
County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me, and I'm sick of it. So I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.